Have you ever seen a man walk into a room and be ignored before he even says a word? Then another man enters, says nothing at all, and somehow everyone's attention shifts toward him. Respect seems to flow in his direction as if pulled by invisible strings. This is not luck, and it is not fairness. It is a law, an old law that Machiavelli warned about when he wrote that men judge more by what they see than what they actually know. Most people only believe what their eyes tell them. They do not wait to feel the truth. You are not judged by who you are deep down, but by what you look like you are. And once people make up their minds about you, that judgment sticks. It follows you, and no amount of effort can fully erase it. Think about it. You have probably seen this yourself. A man may be wise, talented, even a good person, but if he walks in wearing clothes that look tired and cheap, if his shoes are worn down, if his shoulders slump and his eyes avoid contact, he disappears. People look past him before he even opens his mouth. But another man with no more money, no more skill, no more intelligence enters the room with clean shoes, a confident gaze, and the air of someone used to being taken seriously. Suddenly doors open, voices soften, and respect is offered before he has done anything to earn it. The money in their pockets might be the same, but the treatment is completely different. Perception is the scale that people use to weigh you, and that scale tips in an instant. You may have felt this cruel truth yourself. Walk into a store dressed plainly, and suddenly the service is slower, the tone colder, the suspicion stronger. Walk into the same store looking put together, and suddenly everyone treats you better. The products haven't changed, your money hasn't changed. The only thing that changed was the mask you wore that day. In the court of human opinion, perception is law, and the law is harsh. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago, and the world still proves him right every single day. At job interviews, the candidate who looks sharp, speaks clearly, and moves with confidence is favored over the one who looks nervous or uncertain. On a date, the man who appears sure of himself wins attention, even if his confidence is an act. In business, a watch, a car, or even a single detail of appearance can decide how much respect someone receives. Looking poor is not harmless. Looking poor makes you prey. This is why showing weakness openly is far more dangerous than being weak in private. A man who fights his battles quietly still has a chance to rise. A man who puts his struggles on display for the world to see has already surrendered his power before the fight even begins. Poverty is not just the lack of money. Poverty is a signal. It tells others that you are disposable, and when people see you as disposable, they will step on you without hesitation. Cruelty toward the weak is rarely punished. Machiavelli warned rulers to never let their power be doubted, because doubt invites rebellion. The same truth applies to you. If you show lack, you invite disrespect. If you show strength, even when it's just for show, others hesitate before testing you. Think about the beggar. People do not hate him only because he is hungry. They hate him because his hunger shows powerlessness. His torn clothes announce that he cannot protect, cannot provide, cannot resist. He is no longer seen as a man but as a warning sign. This is what failure looks like. But imagine another man just as poor, just as hungry, who stands tall. His coat may be plain, but it is clean. His shoes may be old, but they are polished. His voice may shake from hunger, but he speaks steadily. The world treats him differently. Prices lower for him. Women soften their voices when speaking to him. Men think twice before dismissing him. Both men are equally poor, but one hides his poverty behind a mask of dignity, and in that mask he finds power. History is full of examples like this. Advisors whose ideas could have saved kingdoms went unheard because their appearance betrayed poverty. Scholars whose brilliance died in obscurity because their posture was small and weak. Meanwhile, men with shallow minds but shining clothes were celebrated as geniuses and trusted with power. The truth is harsh. People respond to image before they respond to truth. Look poor, and even your wisdom will be mocked. Look wealthy, and even lies will be believed. Once you understand this, you begin to see why the world feels so unforgiving. People do not wait to know your story. They do not pause to test your skill. They judge in an instant, and once they judge, the verdict sticks. You cannot show up vulnerable and expect them to honor your honesty. People worship masks. They bow to symbols. They obey what dazzles their eyes long before their logic has time to think. This is the first cruel reality you must accept if you want to rise. Never let yourself look poor, not even once. One glimpse of weakness can burn into memory forever. and memory is a prison. Even if you later succeed, even if you later prove yourself, people will still whisper, "He was nothing once," and that whisper chips away at respect like water breaking stone. It is better to starve unseen than to let the world watch you eat scraps. It is better to borrow symbols of strength than to stand honestly in rags. Appearance comes first. Illusion comes first. The mask must appear before the man behind it is believed. And this is just the beginning. Because if appearances decide how much respect you get today, they also decide far more than that. They decide whether friends trust you, whether rivals fear you, whether lovers stay loyal, whether followers obey. The same law that erases the poor man in the market can destroy kings and topple generals. And nowhere is this law sharper than in the places where power lives, in politics, in business, in the pursuit of wealth. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by what they see than what they feel. This was not poetic writing, it was a warning. Power has never depended only on strength. It has always depended on the appearance of strength. A king sitting on a golden throne, surrounded by guards in shining armor, wins obedience before he speaks. But a prince who dresses simply, who walks among commoners without splendor, invites ridicule, rebellion, and contempt. It was never just the man who ruled, it was the stage he stood on. You can see this everywhere in history. Louis XIV of France called himself the Sun King. He knew magnificence was not just vanity, it was control. He built Versailles not as a home but as a theater of power. Every guest who entered was blinded by gold, overwhelmed by scale, and reminded of his superiority. Compare him to rulers who lived modestly. They may have been loved, but they were rarely feared, and fear is what keeps thrones from falling. Machiavelli would have told them that affection fades quickly, but fear born from spectacle keeps people obedient. Even today, nothing has changed. Power still needs a stage. Walk into the headquarters of a global company and notice the glass towers, the massive lobbies, the art on the walls. These are not there for comfort. They are there to signal power, to impress investors, employees, and competitors. A CEO may fly in a private jet, not because he has to, but because its sight declares his superiority before the meeting even begins. Politicians do the same with flags, music, crowds, and cameras. It is theater, a performance that burns the idea of authority into the minds of everyone watching. Without this theater, even the strongest leader looks ordinary, and ordinary leaders are ignored. Do not think this is just about kings, CEOs, and billionaires. The same law applies to you every day. The way you look, speak, and carry yourself decides the jobs you get, the partners you attract, the opportunities offered to you, and the way you are remembered. Walk into a negotiation looking desperate, and you have already given away your power before you say a word. Your opponent senses weakness and takes advantage. But if you enter with good posture, a calm face, and the quiet energy of someone used to being in control, suddenly he hesitates. That hesitation is your weapon. It buys you respect. It buys you space. It changes the deal before the first word is even spoken. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must avoid being despised at all costs. To look poor is to invite contempt, and contempt is the first step toward betrayal. Look at how powerful people throughout history disguised their lack with symbols of greatness until reality bent to meet the image. Many of the most powerful men in history began with nothing, but they borrowed signs of destiny, rented halls, borrowed fine clothing, surrounded themselves with the appearance of success, and in time, people believed them. And when people believed them, power and money began to flow their way. The mask always comes before the crown. This is why the richest people in the world put so much effort into their image, not just in what they wear, but in how they walk, how they talk, where they are seen, and who they are seen with. A billionaire will not carry an outdated phone. A hedge fund manager will not arrive at an important meeting on a bicycle. They know people do not wait to weigh the truth. They decide instantly. If they see strength, they follow it. If they see poverty, they exploit it. Think of merchants. A customer who looks rich is treated like royalty, offered better deals, spoken to with respect, given extra attention. The customer who looks poor is rushed, ignored, or even cheated. And yet both may have the exact same amount of money in their pockets. This is because people do not measure with scales, they measure with their eyes. What they see matters more than what actually is. Machiavelli himself said it. It is not titles that honor men, but men who honor titles. What he meant was that crowns, robes, and symbols must exist, because without them no one listens to the man at all. You must understand this deeply. Poverty is not just a lack of resources, it is a performance of weakness, and weakness attracts predators. When a ruler looks weak, rebellion starts. When a company looks weak, competitors attack. When a man looks weak at home, loyalty dies. This is not pessimism, it is human instinct. People invest where they see strength, and they abandon what looks like it will collapse. If you look strong, people will forgive your mistakes. If you look weak, they will laugh at even your victories. That is why looking poor is never neutral. It does not make you invisible. It makes you a target. It tells others, the jealous, the ambitious, the ruthless, that you are open to be taken advantage of. Look through history, and you will find countless examples of men not destroyed by their lack of ability, but by their failure to hide their lack behind a mask of strength. Advisors who could have saved their king, ignored because their clothes were too simple. Brilliant thinkers dismissed because they appeared small. Meanwhile, lesser men, dressed like lords, were celebrated, obeyed, and rewarded. This law applies everywhere: in the palace, on the battlefield, in the boardroom, in your own home. Appearance does not just decide respect, it decides survival. A general whose soldiers march in rags signals defeat before a single arrow flies. A man who cannot show strength in his home invites betrayal. A negotiator who looks desperate signs his own death sentence before the deal even starts. The theater of wealth and strength is not entertainment, it is war. And if you ignore this theater, if you refuse to play the game, you will be crushed by those who understand it. Because appearances not only decide today's outcome, they decide tomorrow's betrayal. Allies leave, lovers cheat, enemies advance, not always because you lacked real strength, but because you failed to show it. And this is why the mask is not vanity, it is the sharpest weapon you have. The man who ignores appearances is not just invisible, he is betrayed. Machiavelli warned that it is safer to be feared than loved, if you must choose. Why? Because love is fragile. It fades when you disappoint people. Fear, however, stays as long as your strength stays. If you look weak, even those who swore loyalty will abandon you. If you look poor, betrayal comes faster. People fear no consequences from someone who seems powerless. A servant steals from a poor master because he knows nothing will happen. A wife may lose respect for a poor husband because she feels unprotected. Allies leave a comrade who looks weak because they see no future standing beside him. To look poor is to wear a sign that says "Betray me" without fear. Imagine war. A general who lets his soldiers march in torn clothes has already lost before the fight starts. Enemies see weakness and attack with courage. Allies doubt him and hesitate to support. Even his own soldiers, ashamed of their condition, lose hope. But a general who shines their armor, raises banners, and creates a spectacle of strength fills his enemies with fear and his men with fire. Even if those soldiers are hungry, they will fight harder because they feel powerful. Spectacle is not vanity, it is strategy. On the battlefield, hesitation can mean survival. If your enemy hesitates, you win time to strike. The same rule governs the battlefield of life. When you look poor, you are attacked without mercy. Predators can sense your lack. But if you cloak yourself in even a small appearance of strength, hesitation grips them. They wonder what power you may be hiding. That single moment of doubt is often enough to protect you, or even turn the tables. This is the mask Machiavelli understood. Power is first about perception, and only later about reality. The mask must come before the man. Illusion comes before substance. People obey shadows as if they were real. But there is a warning here. Vanity is not strategy. Vanity is a trap. The vain man spends money just to admire himself. The strategic man spends money to control how others treat him. The vain man buys luxury to feel superior. The strategist buys symbols of status to gain influence. One is weakness in disguise. The other is war, disguised as theater. Look around at the powerful today, and you will see this difference. The influencer who rents jets and posts for attention soon collapses when the lie is exposed. The CEO who quietly invests in credibility, a tailored suit, a confident tone, a professional office attracts real investors. Illusion becomes reality. The difference is not in what is shown, but in why it is shown. Machiavelli would remind you, people do not care about your intentions, only about the results they see. If your image changes how the world treats you, it is a weapon. If it exists only for applause, it is just decoration. This is why you cannot dismiss appearances as shallow. They are how people decide whether to trust you, betray you, fear you, or follow you. History is filled with brilliant minds who died in obscurity because they refused to play the game of appearances. Meanwhile, pretenders who looked the part were crowned kings. People do not weigh truth carefully. They weigh appearances, and appearances win. Even in love, this law holds. People are not drawn first to kindness or sincerity. They are drawn to symbols of safety, power, and ability to provide. A man who arrives confident, well-dressed, and looking like he owns his destiny wins admiration, even if his wallet is nearly empty. A man who arrives in rags, though he may have the purest heart, is often rejected. This is not cruelty, it is instinct. Humans are wired to follow strength and avoid weakness. Love without strength is fragile. Loyalty without fear of consequence is an illusion. To appear poor is not to be left alone, it is to be hunted. Weakness is not ignored, it is targeted. Merchants cheat, the desperate employers underpay those who look like they have no better option. Rivals attack those who look like they cannot fight back. Enemies strike when they sense no risk of retaliation. Appearances are your shield. Lose them, and those who smiled at you yesterday will devour you tomorrow. The cruel truth is that once poverty marks you, once weakness is displayed, its memory stays. Even if you later rise, people whisper, "He was once nothing." That whisper eats away at respect like acid. Reputation, once stained, is almost impossible to clean. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must protect his reputation like he protects his kingdom. The same is true for you. Better to starve in private than to let people watch you eat scraps. Better to borrow dignity than to display lack. Men rarely forgive weakness once they have seen it. But here is where the clever rise above the rest. When the mask is worn long enough, it becomes real. The man who looks strong long enough eventually becomes strong. The man who looks wealthy long enough attracts opportunities that make him wealthy. The man who plays the role of a leader eventually becomes one. Illusion bends into reality. This is why you must dare to wear the mask until it fuses with your face. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must, above all, avoid being despised. To look poor invites exactly that. First impressions harden into stone. If the first time people see you, you look diminished, everything you do later will be judged through that lens. Your success will be called luck. Your advice will be ignored. Your ambition will be mocked. The image of poverty becomes a prison. The world does not forget weakness. A ruler who let his dignity slip saw rebellion rise. A prince who allowed his glory to fade saw allies turn against him. Even in today's world, leaders who fail to signal strength lose followers, lose investors, lose trust, even if they are still capable. People despise poverty, not always out of cruelty, but out of fear. Poverty reminds them of their own possible fall. They mock the poor man to distance themselves from that terror. They dismiss him to silence their fear. To look poor is to be a mirror of weakness, and men smash mirrors they fear to look into. But to look wealthy, to look powerful, is to become a symbol of what they desire. They are drawn closer, they obey, they follow. This is why it is better to prevent the image of poverty than to try to erase it later. Even the smallest symbols can change your fate. Clean shoes, a steady voice, a confident pause. These tiny signals make predators hesitate, and hesitation can save you. A crown is only metal, but when it rests on a head, it silences armies. A robe is only fabric, but when worn right, it commands respect. Symbols are weapons. And this rule is not just about war or business, it is about love too. People do not follow honesty into hunger. They follow those who look capable of providing, those who carry themselves as if they can protect. To look poor in love is to invite betrayal. To look strong is to win loyalty. This is not cynicism, it is nature. The lesson is merciless but clear. You cannot escape appearances. You can only choose whether they destroy you or protect you. If you look poor, you will be condemned before you speak, mocked before you try, forgotten before you rise. But if you cloak yourself in strength, even if it is borrowed, you make others hesitate. And in that hesitation, you gain a chance. From that chance comes survival, then respect, then power. Men believe what they see so strongly that they bend the world to match it. That is why the wise invest more in image than in private comfort. A fine meal eaten alone is forgotten by morning. A polished coat worn in public is remembered for years. Comfort dies quickly. Image builds destiny. The poor man who ignores this truth works hard but enriches others. He speaks wisely but is laughed at. He loves sincerely but is left for someone who looks stronger. He sacrifices but is seen as weak. He dies unnoticed. The cunning man, however, hides his lack until it no longer exists. He wears the mask until it fuses with his face. Then illusion is no longer illusion. It is reality. Reality bends to him. So you must decide. Will you let yourself be seen in weakness, inviting contempt that never fades? Or will you cloak your poverty until it bends into wealth? Cloak your fear until it looks like confidence. Cloak your doubt until it becomes certainty. The law is cruel, but it is not hopeless. You can master appearances, and those who master appearances master other people. Those who neglect them are erased. If you have listened this far, it means you already know this truth deep down. Now is the time to act. Do not wait until you are rich to look rich. Do not wait until you have power to look powerful. Begin now. Start with symbols, with gestures, with small steps. Build the mask until reality follows. And as a declaration, write in the comments, I will never look poor. Show the world you choose strength over pity, survival over weakness. And when you finish this, watch the next lesson, because once you master appearances, you are ready for the next weapon, Machiavelli, placed in the hands of those who dare to rule their fate.